We're here in the middle of the campus of Eastern New Mexico University. On the site of this fountain, there was a gymnasium which was brought over from Fort Sumner at the end of World War II and was used for almost 20 years by Eastern New Mexico University Greyhound basketball teams. It was brought from Fort Sumner at the end of World War II and was used until 1967 when Greyhound Arena was constructed, and Eastern New Mexico University basketball Greyhounds and the Zias have played there ever since. Immediately behind me, over by the Education Building and the College of Business, was the second football stadium used by the Eastern New Mexico University Greyhound football team. This was used until the middle 60s when, on the far north campus of Eastern New Mexico University at Blackwater Draw, the football stadium was constructed, and that's where the Greyhounds play their games right now. During this 50-year celebration of Eastern New Mexico University, we've reminisced and looked back into our history. We've had alums who have come back and given lectures and performances. And looking back at the 50-year history of Eastern New Mexico University athletics and the many thousands who have been associated with those sports programs, a Hall of Honors has been established to recognize all of those, and particularly 10 who have been picked by the Hall of Honors Committee to represent all of those. These are 10 very outstanding athletes, and we think that you'll like meeting them, and they will be inducted in the Hall of Honors on a banquet on November 9th on Friday, and be recognized at the Eastern New Mexico University Texas Lutheran game at Greyhound Stadium on Saturday.
Al Garton, longtime coach of many Eastern teams. Al also served as athletic director. Harold Schwarzenbach, quarterback of the first Greyhound football team. Harry Miller, first All-American basketball player and coach for the Greyhounds 1965 through 1970. Greg Hyder, 2-year All-American basketball player with Coach Harry Miller. Steve Spray, 3-year All-American in golf. Ron Holcomb. Curtis Blair, All-American quarterback on the 1957 undefeated team. Pete Jaquess, most valuable player for 2 years, played in the AFL for Houston, Miami, and Denver. Rex Matt Ufford and Mike Boyett, world-class track athletes, Matt Ufford from New Zealand, Mike Boyett from Kenya.
The Hall of Honors was created this past spring when Dr. Bob Matheny appointed a Hall of Honors committee in association with the 50th Anniversary Committee. And the 50th Anniversary Committee financed this group to the tune of a couple of $1,000s. Most of this money has been used for research in the archives of the library, with people looking up former athletes and the things they have accomplished. The other side of it, we had a mass mailing in June of 9,123 letters in which we asked each alum in a 6-state area to name the 5 best athletes, in his opinion, or her opinion, that was in school while they were presently here, of which gave us another pool of names to work with. The Hall of Honors, naturally, we are seeking to name in this first charter membership our 10 best people. Watching this committee work, I find that's impossible. That maybe these aren't the 10 best, but they certainly represent the 10 best. And I think we have a tremendous group of people in this first selection. So there's 10 charter members, 1 in support, 9 in the athlete category. And then from now on, there will be a maximum of 2 in the athlete category and 1 in the support category for each year from now on.
Well, I was hired as coach. There wasn't any basketball, football, or not. I just coach.
Garton coached football, basketball, and track in a career that spanned 27 years at Eastern until his retirement in 1965. Dr. Carl Richardson, chairman of the Health, Physical Education, and Recreation Department, former Greyhound football player and head football coach, talks about his experience with Al.
I came back here, I thought it'd probably take me at least 6 months to a year to get Coach Garton wised up on what was really going on in the football world, and I can truthfully say that I learned more football the next 6 months than I learned in my life before or since. I think he's way ahead of his time, and the conditions in which he worked with this university, I think he's probably the only man that could have done that. He worked by himself a lot. He worked under conditions that is almost impossible, and maybe another person wouldn't have done it, and maybe very few other people could have done what he did for this university as far as the athletic program.
Howard Schwarzenbach, retired veterinarian of Big Spring, Texas, was the quarterback of the 1934 and 35 football teams. He scored the first touchdown in the history of Eastern football as a member of the undefeated 1934 team. Athletic director B.B. Lees and Dr. Dewey Langston, professor in health, physical education, and recreation, remember Howard Schwarzenbach.
In 1935, Howard was the captain of the football team. Not only has he scored the first touchdown for this school, he scored most of the touchdowns in 34 and 35. And we're very happy that Howard is remembered so well by all who have observed this university for 50 years.
And he, during all of these years, has been a strong supporter of Eastern, and he's a fantastic person. And I was so pleased that they did go back, one of the original football team members. And Howard is quarterbacked that first team. And that first team, you know, was undefeated, although they tied 3 times. But they were undefeated, and that was a great start for Eastern's athletic tradition that we've enjoyed over these now 50 years.
You can't mention Greyhound basketball without the names of Harry Miller and Greg Hyder, 2 of our charter members of the Hall of Honors. Harry, currently the head basketball coach at Stephen F. Austin, is honored for his basketball contributions as an undergraduate from 1948 through 1950. In 1950, he became Eastern's first basketball player to be named an All-American. Miller came back to coach at his alma mater from 1965 through 1970. The Greyhounds won the national championship in 1969 and placed 3rd in 1970. The mainstay of those teams was Greg Hyder, who Miller recruited from Victorville, California. The national championship game in Kansas City against Maryland State was probably the finest hour for an Eastern athletic team. In Harry Miller's last year, 1970, when the team finished 3rd, Greg was named the most valuable player. Greg continues to hold 8 scoring and rebounding records that were set during his career at Eastern. Harry Miller and Greg Hyder, Eastern basketball greats. Ron Holcomb of Midland, Texas, was all-conference 2 years during his football career as a Greyhound. During his senior year, he scored 74 points and became the first football All-American in Eastern's history. Holcomb still holds the school record of 13 interceptions in a single season set in his freshman year. He is presently the president of the Eastern New Mexico University Alumni Association. Dr. Richardson recruited Ron.
He was an excellent athlete, a leader. When I say an excellent athlete, he had several attributes that a lot of players don't have. He could catch the ball, he could shoot it and kick it and run. And he wasn't a real big player, but he was really a good basic fundamental player. And he was just as hard without the ball as he did with it. Then when I inherited the team, Ron was a senior, and that was in 1954. And he led us to several wins and was our captain, and we were very proud of him, naturally, and still are.
Curtis Blair of Brea, California, received All-American football honors in 1957. With Blair as quarterback, the Greyhounds won more games in the 1954 through 57 seasons than with any other quarterback in the history of the university. Even though he was a great player, B.B. Lees gives another dimension of Curtis.
He's the most humble person I've ever been around, and one of the more academic people. And I'm sure as a counselor today in La Habra High School in California, and his leadership through that football program there for so many years, turning his time to a counselor, I can only imagine that how honored some people are to have their child play or know Curtis as a man.
Former Roswell High School player Pete Jaquess was voted the most valuable player for the Greyhounds twice while a member of the football team from 1960 through 64. He was drafted by the Houston Oilers in 1964 and was named the Oilers Rookie of the Year. He completed his professional football career with teams in Miami and Denver. Jaquess now lives in El Cajon, California, where he is the owner of Jayco Construction. Coach Richardson and Coach Lees were Pete's coaches during his tenure at Eastern.
Very intelligent player. I really don't like to say that I coached Pete or that Coach Lees coached him. You really didn't have to coach him. He was just always there, and you never had to stop practice to correct Pete or to have him do something else. He would just have to stand while you corrected somebody else. His playing record naturally will account for the fact that he was a super halfback. He is one of the best players that I've ever had the privilege of coaching.
Joe Dixon gathered up our golf team. It won the national title in 1963, and in doing that, of course, the leader of the squad was Steve Spray, who we are honoring in this Hall of Honors, as he was the medalist twice in NAIA National Championship play and was an All-American the 3 years that he was here.
I made a lot of trips for Coach Dixon. Dr. Dixon was the golf coach at that time. And many times he couldn't make some trips, so I would take him, and I got to know Steve and all of that national championship team real well. And Steve, like all of those others, his ability to play golf, you don't have to discuss it. He just was a natural player, and he paid the price to be that.
Steve Spray, the golf professional at the St. Louis, Missouri Country Club, now plays a modified schedule on the Professional Golf Association Tour. In the early and mid-70s, Coach Bill Silverberg brought world-class track athletes to Eastern New Mexico University and began a tradition in track and field that produced several national championship, cross-country, indoor, and outdoor track teams. The first great distance runner to arrive at Eastern was an Olympian from New Zealand, Rex Matt Ufford. During his track career, Rex was named All-American 4 times in outdoor and indoor track and cross-country. His 1971 winning 2-mile indoor time in the NAIA finals is still the record. He also won the 2-mile in 1972. He was first in the 1970 cross-country finals. In the NAIA outdoor finals in 1970, he won the 5,000 and 10,000 meter runs, and in 1973, he won the 3,000 meter steeplechase. Matt Ufford was inducted into the NAIA National Hall of Fame in 1982. Rex Matt Ufford, a physical education teacher and freshman football coach, now lives in Tucumcari, New Mexico. Mike Boyd from Kenya was the next dominating world-class performer Silverberg brought to the university. Teaming up with Matt Ufford in his first year, the championship tradition continued. Boyd still holds the 1,500-meter and 880-yard NAIA records and was the 1,500-meter national champion in 1974, 1975, and 76. In the NAIA national finals in 1975 and 76, he also won the 800-meter run. Boyd was the individual winner of the national NAIA cross-country run in both 1974 and 75. In indoor track in the national finals, he won the 880-yard run in 73 and 75 and the 1-mile run in 1973, 1975, and 76. In 1982, Boyd was also inducted into the NAIA National Hall of Fame. Mike is currently completing a doctorate at the University of Oregon in Eugene and still runs competitively at a world-class